Rock 102.1 KFMA. Another week is down, but we like to give you updates on what's been happening in the scientific community because a lot of good things have been moving forward as far as science is concerned. Like, I'll give you a headline here. A study in Austria found that watching too many crime dramas like Law and Order can skew your perspective on real crime stories. So basically, we see things in shows and assumes they reflect reality, but they obviously don't. But that was a study they just found. You got a headline here?
You can't believe everything you see on TV.
Yeah, that's the takeaway there.
Yeah, but let's talk about, we're talking about science, space, because NASA's flight director revealed that last week's space station mishap, you'll hear about this, was more serious than they thought. You see, the thrusters on the new Russian module accidentally fired after it docked last Thursday. And they said it spun the station about 45 degrees.
Yeah. It kept spinning until they were able to stop it. But yeah, that's crazy. Just imagine being in there and then all of a sudden you're spinning out of control.
Well, the thing is that it wound up spinning a whole lot more than that. So 504 degrees, that's a full 360, and then another 180. Oh, yeah. And
That's
it was upside down when it finally stopped. But it happened so slow because it's space and gravity. None of that there. The astronauts didn't notice at all.
Oh, so they were just hanging out, and then somebody from the outside was like, hey, you guys realize you're upside down? They're like, what? Oh, that's cool. Ocean explorers found a real-life SpongeBob SquarePants.
Wow.
This is a huge discovery in the sea. They spotted the sea sponge in the Atlantic next to a pink starfish that looks exactly like his friend Patrick. Even though they're not friends in real life, they say the starfish was probably about to eat the sponge.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Patrick does love to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So in other animal news, have you heard of these things called giraffes?
I've heard of them, yeah.
I'll tell you, giraffes have much more of active social lives than we thought.
Really?
And certainly more active than mine these days. Researchers genetically altered a daddy long-legged spider to have short legs. Wow, daddy short legs. It's part of an ongoing study to figure out why their legs are so long in general.
That just seems cruel.
It does.
You know, I mean, you start asking yourself if you can do it. You never ask yourself if you should do it. And this is one of those situations. I don't want to meet a daddy long legs with short legs. The emotional issues that spider's going to have, you just can't fix.
It's true.
Yeah.
And leave mommy legs out of this as well.
That's your week in science. We got more Beef Vegan Presents. I got an update on the Casa Bonita battle. Yes, Trey Parker, Matt Stone. A huge deal just happened for them. Why I'm going to tell you this is good news for South Park fans next on Beef Vegan Present.
You know what? I'm getting hungry.
Check out the Y2KFMA Lunch Break, hosted by
Sorry, guys. I didn't see you on the stream there. It's Beef Vegan and Herb Stratford hanging out, getting ready to talk all things movies and stuff. But yeah, to finish out what you were saying, that's good. I'm glad that.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, you really, it's great because if you miss a show or something, you can just go on there and check it out. And sometimes I like to check out and see, you know, how you're bashing me before I come in the room. So,
well, I mean, hell, I actually clipped those as highlights, so you can just. Right. I did have that as a recycler here on the station. What was the day where I was like, you know, for your visual pleasure. Yeah. Or, you know, in Herb's case, displeasure.
Yeah.
So I threw that little burn in there as a little advertisement for the show. And the ratings have been through the roof since then.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, oh, you're bagging on Herb, huh? I'll listen.
Yeah, once a week, I'm there.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining me. This is what we're doing this hour. You might see some older clips throughout the week. I've been writing solo until Herb came in. We did our listener, who's our most loyal listener contest earlier. Manny won that, so he's listener number 1. We're going to talk about movies first. We're going to talk about what's streaming. Then Herb and I are going to geek out about MTV's The Challenge because this is something we just recently discovered that we have in common. Is that we both love MTV's The Challenge. My girlfriend hates that I love this show, but I love this show. I've loved this show since its inception, and Herb like-minded, right?
Yep, absolutely. My wife and I have watched every episode, every season, every episode. Yep, absolutely.
It is fantastic. So, yeah, we got to talk about The Challenge because I haven't even got to see this new season, but I'm such a nerd. I actually read about it and then watch little Twitter clips and everything else. Yeah, so it was Manny on the stream who was number 1. So here's what I'm going to do. As I gave listener numbers to a bunch of you, which is great. I think every couple weeks we're going to do another challenge to see who remains the top listener. Manny, he got that hands down, super easy. I have tons of trivia questions about the show that I did, and we'll be doing it more. But everybody on the stream knows that, if anyone's going to get the number one slot, I think Manny definitely earns it and deserves it. So no one could argue that. So that's fantastic. All right, let me do this quick tease. Rock 2.1 KFMA, that's the Pretty Reckless surprise. It's Beef Vegan Presents. I'm hanging out here with film critic Herb Stratford. Coming up after Evanescence, we're talking about films coming to movie theaters. What are the names of the films that you're most excited about, real quick?
Vacation Friends on Hulu and probably No Man of God. So,
okay.
Yeah.
We're going to break down what those two movies are all about and why you want to watch them next on Beef Vegan Presents. It's Rock 2.1 KFMA. All right, that was our tease, and that's what we're talking about. And we're super excited about Vacation Friends.
Yeah, we can talk about, if you want, while we're on the stream, we can talk about the other two movies.
Okay, yeah,
let's do that, and then we'll just focus on the other two. So,
the other two movies you got, The Colony,
and Together. Yeah, so The Colony is a pretty well done sci-fi film. It's one of those dystopian things where, everybody's abandoned planet Earth because, we trashed the place and then we just, peace out and left. And there's this woman who's like an astronaut. She's part of a mission to come back to Earth to see if Earth is healed, right? You know what I mean? So, it's been a while, right? It's been a couple generations. And, she's around and she lands and, she's going around and looking at stuff and she's starting to find plant life. And she's like, oh, this is looking pretty good. Maybe things are turning around. And then all of a sudden, the locals get a hold of her. So,
okay.
Yeah, apparently everybody didn't leave. And so there's this whole kind of colony, hence the name The Colony, of people who've basically been, scratching out living on planet Earth all by themselves. And what's super cool about this, I think probably the best thing about this movie, because it's sort of just a so-so movie, is it's set in what is called, the place that it's filmed is like one of those great ship breaking yards. I don't know if you ever see photos of like the places in like Indonesia where they take apart the super tankers, right? So there are all these giant hulking ships that are like half disassembled and they're like in low tide. And so it's very post-apocalyptic looking. So it's, the way it's filmed is super cool because it's very atmospheric and it's not CGI. You know what I mean? It's like actually these really cool old, and not so much like, Kevin Costner Waterworld-ish, but I mean, a little bit of that, right? Sort of dystopian future. So, it's got a low Rotten Tomatoes score. It's like 38, but, if you're a sci-fi fan, it's worth it just for the visuals alone. The story is not all that great. Ian Glenn, who is what's his name? He's from Game of Thrones. He was Khaleesi's chief aide. The guy that got dragon skin or whatever. Mm-hmm. He's like one of the main guys. So it's cool to see the game. I always love seeing Game of Thrones people in movies because it makes me go, oh, I gotta watch Game of Thrones. So anyway, so that's pretty good.
I'm looking at the trailer right now. We're all seeing the trailer, and yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful. It's dark. And everything. So you're saying there's no CGI in this, or little to no CGI?
I think there's some, but it's definitely set in real world. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of it takes place on these ships, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it makes you want to go check this place out because you're like, wow, that's a real place. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So
it kind of gave me a vibe of like The Time Machine as well, when you're talking about the future and dystopian kind of colony, and the Morlocks or whatever.
Yep, absolutely.
But,
the Eloy and the Morlocks. That's right. Hey, good job there.
Yeah, I read that book and I saw the movie, so
and I still like the original Time Machine just because it's got that kind of cool 1960s vibe.
Yeah,
but I mean,
better,
the new one is like more of a horror movie, right?
Yes.
Like Jeremy Irons is terrifying as that head Morlock guy. I mean, he's just and Guy Pearce is always pretty good in what he does.
I was disappointed though. I absolutely was.
I agree. I mean, effect wise, it probably had better effects, but I just grew up when I was a kid. I remember watching that movie, and it was old then. I mean, because it was like early 60s, I think, was the movie, and it was like always kind of like, I want that time machine. I would totally do that, man. I love the effect of him going forward and seeing the buildings rise and fall. And I mean,
that was cool. And as far as graphics at the time, we got 10 seconds, but I mean, they were ahead of their time with those graphics.
Yeah. It was absolutely.
All right, let's get into this here. Rock 2.1 KFMA. Welcome back to Beef Vegan Presents. We're here with Herb Stratford, we being me, and we're talking what's coming out this week. And I'm excited about the first thing that you're going to talk about, which is coming to Hulu. I'm super excited because then I can just watch it at home. It's called Vacation Friends.
Yeah, Vacation Friends. And you know, you and I have talked on the show a little bit about this with Powers and other folks too. You know, John Cena's, he's kind of like the gold standard. I mean, say what you will about other, you know, wrestlers turned movie stars and you know, whatever. I mean, The Rock, whatever. But John Cena, pound for pound, he's my guy. I mean, he is funny. Yeah. He is not afraid to make fun of himself. He doesn't take himself too seriously. I mean, and he makes great choices. I mean, this year alone with Suicide Squad and Vacation Friends, out of the park.
Right.
Out of the park.
So he's
man.
on fire this year. And he was headlined SummerSlam, so he returned to wrestling a little bit too, which kept that fan base still going. But out of the three wrestling actors, The Rock, Dave Bautista, and John Cena just knows how to pick projects better than both of them combined. I mean,
Bautista, I think, is making some good choices, but I think Bautista to me is a little more, and he's going to hate this if he ever hears it, but it's a little more of a one note. Like, he is a guy that sort of plays this big brooding character, right? You know what I mean? And that's his thing. And yeah, in Blade Runner 2049, he had a little bit of a soft side, you know, after you figured out his backstory. But I mean, Cena is not embarrassed to just be a complete a-hole or goofball.
Jackass.
You know what I mean? He will do it. And I don't know if I don't think The Rock, after Tooth Fairy or whatever, is ever going to make a movie where he makes himself look bad on purpose.
That's true. Right? I mean, The Rock does seem to protect his image a lot and try to be that. Yeah,
he is a brand. He's 100% a global brand, and he's laughing all the way to the bank. Fine, you know what I mean? I would rather laugh at and with John Cena, but that's just me.
Yeah. So, I mean, watching this trailer when this came out like a month or so ago, I looked at it and it also stars Del Rey. Or is that Lil Del Rey?
Little Rel Howery.
Yeah, Lil Rel Howery, which you've recognized in a bunch of projects over the past couple of years. He's been on point. He's super funny, former comedian or still comedian. Yeah. But seeing the trailer, I was excited about this because I'm like, man, this looks fun and looks funny. And of course, it's an R-rated comedy, which I love R-rated comedies as well. So, I mean, it checks all the boxes for me. So I was excited about this. So I'm glad that it actually holds up to expectation.
It does, you know, and the premise for people who don't know, the premise is that Lil Rel Howery and his wife are basically really kind of, you know, they're on the edge, right? They're all stressed out. He like can't put his phone down. She's like, look, let's go, you know, on vacation. They go on vacation. He's sort of got this secret plan where he's going to, you know, propose to her or whatever, right? And you know, it's supposed to, they need to decompress. They go to this Mexican resort, and of course, John Cena is the crazy guy, right? Yeah. And he and his wife are nuts. They're like, you know, snorting blow off of each other, and I mean, just partying, driving the jet ski, you know, trashing the hotel room, just, you know, all the crazy stuff. So 180, right, from this really straight-laced couple. Well, you know, you spend a week with these people because they sort of get thrown together, and they start to loosen up, right? They start to become friends, and you're like, oh, okay, this has been really great for him. But they're kind of like, okay, we got to get out of here, right? You know, we got to go back to our life. We are not these crazy people. That was fine. Those were vacation friends, right? Hence the title. And then, you know, they go back to their life, and, you know, they've got the things they're dealing with. Well, of course, chaos ensues when your vacation friends show up in real life. And so then you have all of the, you know, awkward situations, and it's just really funny and just like laugh out loud, kind of like, you know, again, Cena making fun of himself because he's just doing goofy stuff. And it's just a lot of fun. And I mean, it's the kind of thing that, you know, before COVID, you would definitely be seeing like a Bridesmaids kind of release where it would grow in popularity in the theaters. You know, it's not quite as funny as Bridesmaids, but you know what I mean? Like, this is, I'm hoping that the word gets out because Hulu doesn't have as much as a subscriber base as maybe Netflix or other things.
Right. Well, Hulu doesn't, they do a terrible job promoting their shows. I was looking through the Hulu playlist just last night. Yeah. And I'm coming across things where I'm like, James Corden has a show. And I'm like, oh, he has like a comedy show. It's like a drama comedy, jailbreak type of thing, a buddy a show. I'm like, this must be brand new. No, it's on its second season. Like James Corden? Like, I never heard of this in my life. And there was a couple examples that are escaping my mind right now of Hulu shows where I'm like, this is a Hulu original and nobody knows about it. Does it suck that bad? Answer's probably yes.
Well, I think a lot of their stuff, I think you're right. I think they suffer from just, they don't have any space. They're just not promoting and it's mainly their original, because I think a lot of people just counted on them for streaming, NBC stuff or Peacock and everything else. They need to get a little more money in marketing because they're having good quality stuff. And this is a good example of that. So if you do have Hulu, check it out.
Okay. Well, on that note, we got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, was it Man of God?
No Man of God. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about No Man of God and why you should see it next on Beef Vegan Presents.
Rock 102.1 info is KFMA.com. See Zoom interview.
Clear. All right.
Sorry if we went too long there.
No, that's all right. So, I'm just sticking and moving, hitting those commercial breaks. In fact, actually, I do have to.
I don't want to get you in trouble with Mac.
Yeah, I know.
Now that he's back in the building, man. I ran into him when I left. I think it was last week. It's the first time I'd seen him in person in like a year and a half. It was like, holy crap.
Sometimes, yeah, that's true. But I mean, you weren't in the building either. So
no, but I mean, he's the, hell, I'm a volunteer.
Yeah.
He gets paid.
That's true. It's like, you're paid to be here and you're not. But yeah, he's been, the guy works harder than everybody.
Oh yeah, no.
Here,
He absolutely does.
That's because he doesn't delegate. So Anthony said on the stream, he said, it's so off topic just to mess with Beef. I laugh every time he says opportunity. Listen to it. I'll listen for it. Am I saying opportunity wrong?
Sounds right to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed. So
that's funny.
And I am playing the trailers, and hopefully the audio is holding up well, guys. I have both StreamYards up on my old ass janky computer here and playing visuals off of YouTube. So hopefully it's not glitchy and it sounds good, but it looks good.
Well, if you're interested, go check it out, right? You know what I mean? You can find it. All you gotta do is type the name into YouTube and you get like more results than you want. So
that's true. Yeah, but so with Hulu, what are some of the shows that have went under the radar for you? Because I was looking at,
man, I'm trying to think, like
I did watch 9 Perfect Strangers, by the way, and I actually like that show.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, see, and I feel like I need to watch The White Lotus first, because I mean everybody said so much good stuff about that I feel like,
oh man, first off, I like The White Lotus, but secondly, I read a lot of backlash of people just shredding The White Lotus.
Really?
Yes. So, it was a huge hit for HBO. It got great ratings, but there is blowback and people calling it out, being like, hey, the White Lotus is not brilliant. It sucks ass. So it's polarizing. You have two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
People who love it and people who hate it. So in my mind, that's a hit. And obviously,
if you're all loved, that's network TV, right? I mean,
yes.
So no, I think like the McCartney 3-2-1 series was on Hulu,
yes.
and that was freaking brilliant.
I wouldn't have known about that if you didn't talk about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I wouldn't have known about it if I wasn't a critic, because I mean there was no press on it.
Yeah.
Summer of Soul, of course, the doc was really great. I'm looking for other shows. Handmaid's Tale is on there, but that has its own following.
It has buzz, but again, when it started, I guess not everyone knew about it. It wasn't until after the first season that it started catching on.
True. Little Fires Everywhere, which is a Reese Witherspoon thing series, was pretty good. United States versus Billie Holiday was like super depressing because she's portrayed, I mean, as this really brilliant singer, which she was, but she's also like a complete junkie, and it's really depressing to watch somebody shoot heroin for 2 hours. It's just not a happy thing. I've heard good things about the Wu-Tang series that's on Hulu.
Watched the first season.
I have not, and I know season 2's coming out, I think.
Yes,
right?
I'm excited about that. One of the things that make the Wu-Tang series so good on Hulu is the casting. They did excellent casting. ODB looks like ODB, Method Man, the whole nine. And then seeing the backstory, of course, it's for a television show, so they probably exaggerate here and there, but it still tells a very compelling story. And right now, it's very chic in 2021 to reflect on the 90s. I think 90s culture, when it comes to pop culture, is it's that time, just like the 70s was huge to portray in the 90s. It's the 2 decades later kind of rule, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's super interesting because I don't know if we would have got that Wu-Tang series if we didn't have the film about what was it a couple years ago? It wasn't Run DMC, but it was
Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, Straight Outta Compton, right?
Yes.
Which was so, again, perfectly cast. Of course, wasn't a Cube's son that was in it. So I mean,
Yep.
you know, but I mean, I think that sort of like opened people's eyes to the idea that, hey, wait, you know, this is recent history, but it's also history. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And it was so, it's hard because we're not far enough away from it to understand how groundbreaking some of this stuff was. And it really, even if it's not your cup of tea, you have to respect the beginnings of something that was so seismic and so like
Right.
really world changing in terms of music world, you know, dramatically. I don't know, you know, I mean, we're living through whatever is happening now, but I don't know if I see any kind of a thing like that, like a milestone of somebody. I mean, yeah, you know, Billie Eilish is I think she's a really great talent, but I don't think she's like changing you know, a world. You know
She
what I
didn't
mean?
struggle. I don't know if you'll see those kind of stories in the rock alternative realm, but I mean, I think you would still kind of see them in the urban kind of stories and situations. But that's how it is. So Wu-Tang's story is great because it's you know, trying to break into a music industry in the 90s as you know, the ultra competitive world of hip hop, while also trying to live in boroughs and ghettos in New York and hustle and get by and not get caught up. So there's a lot to unpack there. Straight Outta Compton, I love. I was just talking about it with Lance yesterday because Lance is a young guy and he's like, when are they going to make a Tupac movie? They did, and they fucked it up.
Yeah.
And that was 100% because of casting.
Yep.
And you know, so the guy they casted as Tupac looked like Tupac but couldn't act for shit.
Yeah.
And it took you out of the movie, and it's very unfortunate. And I do think they need to redo it.
Well, and I almost wonder too, like, you know, it's just like, has enough time passed that we can really put, you know, like, cause it's going to come down to script too, you know, it's going to come down to, you know, is there enough water under the bridge and we can actually point to things. And I know we can, but I'm just saying, you know, even more to the legacy, right? You know, of like, you know, you wouldn't have this if you didn't have that. And I think that's super important to have. And, you know, I mean, I think honestly, sometimes it's just like, it's too soon, you know, it's like you don't have the right script, the right cast, the right, you know, perspective on history. I mean, I like worry now that we're going to end up, you know, just you and I'll be maybe talking on the radio 10 years from now, and there'll be some like, you know, some stupid movie about P. Diddy or something, you know, or about like, you know, like 50 Cent. And you're just going to be like, really?
Well, 50 Cent,
you know?
he had a movie made about his life, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Get Rich or Die Trying. And, you know, he was shot 9 times. But what about Kurt Cobain? Are they going to make a movie about Kurt Cobain's life yet?
You know, I mean, I feel like it's still too raw. And I feel like as long as Courtney is alive,
right,
that she will fight it tooth and nail. And she's such a handful. And, you know, I feel like Grohl just doesn't want to go there. I almost feel like there has to be like, you know, it has to be like another 10 years or something. I don't know. I mean, you're gonna accuse me of name dropping, but I did have the opportunity to interview Dave Grohl when we screened his movie up in Napa, you know, Sound City.
Pick that name up for you. There you go.
And you know, and he's still to this day, you mentioned, you know, I mean, this was 5 years ago, but you know, you mentioned Kurt, and he has a visceral reaction. You know what I mean? It's like, he's still, you know, it's still raw for him, you know,
still raw for him. Doesn't want to talk about it.
And I get it.
Yeah.
You know?
I get it too. And you know, he's moved on with his life. And
I mean, he's got people who don't even know what Nirvana is. They're like, he was in a band before Foo Fighters. It's like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know.
Although then you have somebody like Charlie Watts passing this week, which was very sad, but also, I mean, he was 80. You know, he wasn't going out with those guys on their most recent tour.
No, because he fell ill. The best tweet that I saw about Charlie Watts this week was, I saw a baby wearing a Rolling Stone onesie. and I said, R.I.P. Charlie Watts. And he just sat there and drooled. Fucking poser. I was like, yeah, that was great thing. But I think a problem with, say, Straight Outta Compton, going back to rock docs or movies like that, is music licensing. There was a large part of the film that the only thing I didn't like about Straight Outta Compton is that it did such a great story. Did such a great job telling the story of the band's rise in the 80s, and then glossed over the 90s and the reason why it glossed over the 90s really is because they didn't have licensing rights to Death Row's music because of Suge Knight, who so happened to be arrested for murder while they were filming this because he attempted to murder somebody on the set of Straight Outta Compton. So they weren't going to get those rights. But it's unfortunate because the beef in the 90s is something I grew up with and is something that I think a lot of 90s kids would have definitely loved to see in that movie. But it would have made 2 full movies. It would have been a 4-hour movie if they included it.
Well, and that's the one good thing about streamers now. It's like people are willing to take a longer look at something, and they don't have to try and cram it into 2 hours. But, you're absolutely right. That's the one thing I think a lot of people don't understand about the movies is music licensing. And when you listen to a movie, like I'll turn to my wife occasionally and I'll be like, oh my God, that is Bob Dylan singing. How did they get the rights to Bob Dylan to drop into this goofy Netflix series? You know what I mean? And it's like they must have spent, because I know a lot of filmmakers, and I know that nobody ever has enough money in their budget for music. And good example of this, Cameron Crowe, Almost Famous, right? Probably the greatest rock music, narrative film ever made. Okay.
15 seconds. Yeah.
And, he did it and it worked because he got Led Zeppelin to give him the music. He got Elton John to give him the music. Right. That made all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get back on here talking movies with Herb Stratford. Rock 102.1 KFMA. We were talking all things movies with film critic Herb Stratford, and we're having a great conversation on our stream on the Rock 102.1 Facebook page or on YouTube. Just search Beef Vegan Presents so you can hear what we're talking about there. Let's get back into what's coming to theaters, right? So this movie's coming to theaters, right? Or is it going to a streaming service?
This one may be in some theaters because it's got a pretty good cast. It's got a pretty good distributor. So you may be able to find this. I didn't have a chance to check before I got on. Sometimes I check local theaters just to see if stuff has slipped in because, it's not one of the mainstream movies. But It's called No Man of God. And, Ted Bundy, rest not in peace, has been really sort of on a renaissance, right? I mean, there's been all these projects with Ted Bundy sort of revisiting the history of him. And of course, it's America's, fascination with its own dark side.
Yes.
And this was, of course, for anybody who doesn't know, he was one of the most successful serial killers of all time.
Yep.
Was finally executed by the state of Florida. Anywhere from 30 to, 60 people he killed, and mainly single women who he would lure into the back of his van by pretending to have a cast on or whatever.
Right.
Anyway,
after he escaped from jail and everything else, they executed him. So he has a long storied career.
It's a really interesting, as weird as that is to say, he's an interesting character, right? So that's probably why you're getting all this, he's not just like John Wayne Gacy, who just was, dressed up like a clown and murdered kids. That's pretty much one and done, right? There's a little more interesting to the psychotic nature of Ted Bundy. So anyway, this new film it's a narrative film. It's not a documentary, so it's a narrative film, and it basically is the story of the FBI analyst whose name was Bill Hagmaier, and he's the guy that basically, as Florida was getting ready to execute Bundy, the FBI sent him in and tried to have him try and befriend Bundy to try and figure out how many of these unsolved mysteries were actually Bundy murders, right?
And not copycats or things like that. Yeah.
And so basically, this is the story of their sort of, I don't want to say relationship, because it was sort of a cat and mouse thing where, he had to earn Bundy's trust, and then he had to sort of figure out if Bundy was just bragging about stuff or whatever. But so it's sort of interesting, and not that at the end of this that he is not like, oh, don't execute him or anything. You know what I mean? He was not like a convert, but it's just interesting to see that relationship. So it's a very talky movie, right? It's two guys talking. It's very interesting. And it has
Elijah Wood's in this.
Yeah, Elijah Wood plays the agent, and Luke Kirby, who is a handsome guy, who frankly is and that was part of Bundy's appeal, was that he was a good-looking guy.
That was the controversy around the 2 projects that were released last year about Ted Bundy, is that all these women are fawning over a certified POS. It's like, no, this guy was garbage. And he killed people, and he was, personified evil. And let's be honest, he wasn't that good looking. So put the sex toys away.
It's funny you say that, because the last one to portray him was Zac Efron. And Zac, I think, and that movie was pretty good because it was about the girl who was actually married to him and didn't know his double life. And, he would disappear for a while and go murder people and then come back home.
Yeah.
So, Zac is a perfect example of somebody who's probably too pretty, to play this role, because you're right. He was a handsome guy, but he wasn't like Zac Efron.
No, that's the thing. So, it's like, in hindsight, history was very kind to the legacy of Ted Bundy, because when you look at the actual pictures and stuff, you're like, no, man, this guy is a modern day Six. but you're treating him like
Yeah.
he's Fabio, and
Yeah.
that's an old school reference, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It was 76% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I found it curiously interesting just because I'd seen the Zac Efron thing and I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, here's another take that we haven't necessarily seen. And I like Elijah Wood. Elijah Wood picks really interesting projects, and so I knew I would not be disappointed, with him. And it's worth a look if you're really interested.
Yeah, I'm super interested. I am a fan of Elijah Wood as well. I mean, he's one of the only child actors from my generation and actually kind of made it to, he's Frodo.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
was in Wilfred, which
Yeah.
I wish went on for another 3 seasons. So I'm glad he's still working. All right. That's what the movies that we're focusing on this week. To recap, Vacation Friends is on Hulu, and then No Man of God might be in theaters. You're going to have to Google and check that one out, but it's highly recommended. We're going to talk TV with Herb Stratford as we're what's coming to Netflix, the show that you may or may not want to watch. And we're also going to geek out on MTV's The Challenge, because Herb and I are closet challenge fans.
Not anymore. We're out of the
Yeah,
closet.
we're out of the closet. We're going to be talking our love and the drama and everything that's about this latest season of MTV's The Challenge. That's coming up next. So stick around. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA. Clear. All right. So, yeah, we're doing good on time. So, I mean, it just so happens. So we've been unpacking on each individual thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, we'll just do individual segments like that and then do
Yeah,
our TV segment
whatever
on
works. And then we can also tease next week. I'm actually gonna have to stream in next week because I gotta go see my dad in Montana.
Okay.
85. So
Oh,
so I'll be
nice.
gone next week, but we'll do what we normally do if it works.
Yeah, that'll work. I mean, it worked last time.
Is Powers back next week?
Yeah, Powers will be back next week. He was gone for 2 weeks. So, and then next week, I don't have Mari, but I have my buddy Rico in on Monday. D-Rock and Todd on Tuesdays with Emil. So Tuesday's going to be loaded up. I have my buddy Dre and Aaron on Wednesdays. Of course, Drum through most of the week. And on Thursday, Lance. And forgetting somebody else on Thursday. So, yeah, we've been keeping it loaded up, which is good. Yeah. And, of course, people have to take time off and got summer vacation plans and all that.
So like back to Larry for a second. So Larry is he does noon, right? He does after Frank.
No, he switched the afternoons. He's on afternoons now.
Right, so he's where Beth was.
Yes.
So what happened to Beth? And Beth is not around?
Unfortunately, Beth and Dino both were let go from the company this week.
Because I know Dino was.
Yeah.
But Dino was on KFMA.
Yes, he was in afternoons. Now Razor's on that spot.
And Beth was on KLPX.
Mm-hmm.
And then so Larry was always doing lunchtime stuff. Like
He was.
doing the hot lunch or whatever thing.
Yeah, and he got moved to the afternoon, which gave him more time to be able to do all this managerial stuff.
Yeah, it seems like that
get
would
there.
be a lot. That's what I was trying to figure out if he was still doing like all that. So
He does so much. So the problem with Mac, it concerns me for his health, is because he works himself into the ground, and it's like, dude, you have employees or had some. I mean, Beth and Dino were so important in all the intricate things that you need to do behind the scenes, that he had to kind of pick up the slack for. But he does have other employees still hanging around that he could be like, hey, can you do a little bit of this? Can you do that?
any task Mucho or somebody do some of this?
Well, no, Mucho's a whole different department, and Mucho's plate's full too. So, I mean, there are some departments that are so stretched in that they have so much on their plate that it's a grind. But then there's, people on air DJs and stuff that only have to do the bare minimum only because they're not being asked to do anything else. That's not me though. So if Mac's watching this stream, don't give me more work. I'm loaded up. So and I've been working, doing a lot of writing, and
I think a lot of people don't understand out in stream world or listener world. It's like, doing a radio show is, you're on.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like not just you roll up and just, it's like dead air is your enemy. So it's like, you have to prep. I mean, there's a lot of work to do a show. I mean, it's, you guys, when you're off, you're like, ooh, I was like digging a ditch.
Oh yeah, sometimes you're physically and emotionally exhausted.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's those days, but yeah, not only on just doing the prep, but then you have to go out and live too. So, the thing that's been stressing me out is this last week or so, I had a couple weeks where I'm not necessarily doing anything. And it's like, okay, now I got to get out and do stuff. Not necessarily spend money, do stuff, but put myself in uncomfortable situations, try new things. So coming into the fall, I'm going to be working on some things like maybe go skydiving, experience that. And then basically you just report on your life. But I got to put myself in situations that I don't want to be in. And that's one of them. That's just an example. So, like, I don't want to skydive. I've gotten old enough to where I have a genuine fear of heights.
Healthy fear of death.
Yes, yes. Isn't that weird how that works? When you're young, you're invincible. And then, the closer you get to death, the more you fear it. And you're like, I don't want to do it. It's like, even though I've already had a good run.
Well, it's like I'm super curious about that indoor sky thing, where like that seems like that'd be a good test, but I still think unless the plane's on fire, I don't know how I'm going to jump out of it. Yeah. I just, I don't know.
Nick on stream says, fuck skydiving. So you know what, Nick? You're right. I'm out. I changed my mind already. Done. That's all. I just needed somebody on the stream to say, don't do it.
But you know what? You bring up a really good point, though, about like forcing yourself to do something. So about 5 or 6 years ago, there was like one of those, discount things. I can't think what they're called right now. Those, coupon things or whatever that came up. And it was like scuba diving. And my wife and I had always talked about, we would love to learn how to scuba dive, but we never pulled the trigger. So we did it, right? And it was like one of these things where, you had to make yourself do it because it's a little scary, right? Yeah. And there's stuff they make you do when you scuba dive. Like you have to take your whole mask off and then put it back on. And I mean, it's scary to get certified and it takes a while. And, at the end of the day, it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. But it's like, I had to do it. And later in life, it's harder to do that stuff. It really is. Like when you're a kid, you're just like, sure, I'll get on that bike and wipe out,
Right.
Yeah. It's important to keep challenging yourself. So
yeah. And I tried scuba diving and breathing through a scuba diving apparatus when I was younger. I just couldn't do it. So I guess that would be something I would try. Maybe if I go to Hawaii again or something. Yeah. That's a White Lotus reference actually, because they were training to scuba dive.
All right.
So that's part of the show. And you should watch it. It's only 6 episodes.
Yeah, I gotta commit to it. I mean, and I gotta say, all right, I don't have like right now. I have 4 or 5 movies at home waiting for me, and then usually I can start something like this next thing we're going to talk about when we go back on air. This series on Netflix. It was like 8 episodes. They're 40 minutes a piece. I just tried to power through 2 or 3 nights, get through it all, and if it's terrible, I don't necessarily finish it, but.
Right. Did you finish this?
I did.
Okay. So I guess that's a good tease for this show. Then, intrigues me just a little bit.
It's interesting. There's a couple things about it that are interesting and different and unique. Is it in my top 20 things this year? No, absolutely not. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah. Have you watched Dave on FX?
No.
It's the show starring Little Dicky.
Yeah.
Did you like Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Well, I liked the early seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and then I don't know if it was just like the joke wore thin, but at some point I was just like, sort of over Larry. I was just sort of like, I felt like it was the same thing. You know what I mean?
I feel like if you were friends with Larry in real life, first off, you seem like you could be friends with Larry in real life, and I think eventually you both would wear thin on each other. And like, be one of those situations.
Well, I looked at that show too, and I was like, oh, I want to hang out with Super Dave Osborne. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, just all the cool friends.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I thought I felt like it maybe just has gone on a couple seasons too long. I think shows have a lifespan. I
think, the shark.
Yeah. And I think that, it's funny because like with Larry David and I like, if I go back and I have friends who watch Seinfeld reruns and I try and watch a Seinfeld rerun or a Friends rerun and I'm just like, I can't do it. I'm not there anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like, I feel like it was funny then. And I mean, literally Seinfeld, I watched every episode when it aired. I mean, I was there.
Right.
I mean, that was Thursday night must-watch TV. And now I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, you've
feels like an artifact, a different era, And
100%.
And Seinfeld's funny. I mean, he's still funny. Like I enjoy him, but it's just like I don't know that just felt like a moment in time.
Yes.
So,
all right, let me switch it up real quick because we got about 4 minutes before we go back on. But I want to ask the streamers this. Okay, so I put together this trivia for the #1 listener. And you can play against Herb, see if he knows his answers. He probably doesn't.
I don't know any
but
of them.
I'll post the first correct comment here. And this is stuff that you guys should all know. So I'll start off with this question, okay? What is D-Rock's real name? What is D-Rock's real name? Do you think you know this, Herb?
No.
Have you met D-Rock yet?
I have
No?
not met D-Rock,
Okay.
so I couldn't even begin to guess.
So again, these are questions that I was going to ask for our listener trivia to find out who's the number one listener. And listener number one is Manny. So Manny got that title. So when he calls in, it's like listener number one. There you go. All right, so it's like glitchy sound. Gotcha. I gotcha. So Derek is the correct answer. Here's our next question. Who comes in on Wednesday? Who normally comes in on Wednesday mornings? Do you know this one?
No.
That's
I'm Friday morning.
true. I got some Friday morning questions in here.
All right.
Incorrect. Eric guessed Lance. Nick said Mari. That's incorrect. Drum is technically correct, but that's not the answer I'm looking for. Besides drum, who comes in Wednesday?
That's a trick
You
question.
guys are forgetting. It's not a trick question. The IRS? Nope. There it is. Brian said Aaron. Aaron comes in Wednesday. Here's a question I don't expect many of you to know. Who was the first call-in, or who's the first call-in guest of the show? When I did my first Beef Vegan Presents show on the station, who was the first guest to call in immediately when I started the show? You might know this if you guess her.
Me?
Yep. Nope.
No.
Because it was the day one.
Oh, all right. Oh, yeah, that would have been like Monday, right? So,
Mhm.
Yeah, no.
The Muffin Man is incorrect.
Nope, no idea.
Wasn't Donovan, wasn't Nick. He was a blast from the past.
Schmonty.
That's right. Schmonty was the first.
Look at that. I got an answer.
See, I told you. I was hinting at it the entire time. All right. What guy was the first to be rated in the score report? Have you heard of score report yet, Herb?
No.
They're pretty fun.
What day do they run?
Wednesdays.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to start listening on Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah. At 7 and 9. I replay it
All
at
right.
9. So Nick was the first streamer on that Monday. Yes, you were, Nick. So I don't think they'll know this. Who was the first to be rated in the score report? I've done about, I say, 7 or 8 of them now. Wasn't Matt? It was Mucho.
Oh,
Mucho, yeah.
all right.
He was the first to step up. So shout out to Mucho. What day does Powers normally come in?
Friday.
That's right. So you got that. What is Todd's full radio name? You met Todd last week.
I did meet Todd last week. I feel like he said it too.
Yeah.
I think he said it when he got introduced to me. No, I don't know.
Todd Marley.
Yeah, he must have told me his whole name.
Mm-hmm. Which wrestler does Powers channel when doing the Macho News?
Would that be Randy Macho Man Savage?
That is correct, Herb. Look at you on fire. And then I have this question. I literally wrote this. You can read it to see if I'm lying. Who's the a-hole that comes in and talks about movies with us?
Let's be vegan.
You see it?
I
do. Staying on brand.
Very
You're staying
nice.
on brand there.
Perfect.
And you might not know this answer, Herb, but I'll ask it anyways. And for everyone out there, what is my daughter's radio name?
Oh.
Now, keep in mind, she's my daughter, so we have the same last name.
VO vegan.
That's correct.
See?
Yes, yeah.
See, given the right questions, I can shine.
Uh-huh.
So,
Real quick before we go back on, the survey finds the top things adults miss about childhood. And actually, I have a joke that I'll save for on that. We're 6 seconds in. I got a herb burn. I got a herb
oh
burn.
no, there should be a
coming.
siren alert, right?
Rocco 2.1 KFMA. We're hanging out here with Herb Stratford on this Friday morning. We talked about what's coming to the movie theaters and your streaming services as far as movies, but what television shows should we keep an eye out for? What's coming to Netflix that you checked out recently, Herb?
Yeah, so there's a new thing on Netflix called Clickbait, and this is like an 8-episode or 9-episode series. And basically, you guys remember Adrian Grenier, the guy from Entourage, right?
Yes.
Vinny Chase, right?
I met him. He was at one of of my concerts one time out in
Really?
Tempe. Yeah, like a local show concert.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, total Vince in it.
He seems like a cool dude. So
He was not bad.
So he basically, this series, and his sister is played by Zoe Kazan, who always does great stuff. So basically, he plays this guy. You know, he's like a private school, you know, like coach or whatever, and he's got a wife and a couple of kids, and all of a sudden, this video pops up, and it's like a viral video of him, and he's like sitting in this room, and he's holding a sign that says "I abuse women," and it says, "At 5 million views, I'm going to be killed." Right?
Wow. Okay.
And so then, you know, the sister sort of freaks out and she's trying to figure out, is this like fake, whatever? The family's freaking out. The cops are trying to figure out what's going on. And so it's this series. And what's interesting about this series is that each episode focuses on a character. So, for example, instead of just running this series out and just, you know, all these storylines are intermixing, you know, one episode is the sister and it sort of follows her around and you get to know her better. And then one is the wife and one is, you know, the cop, and one is the reporter who's covering the case. And so it's interesting the way that they've chosen that format to kind of expand the story. And, you know, it gets all the way down to the end. And I will say that, you know, I ended up sticking with it. And there are a couple of twists and it ends very unexpectedly. So, you know, not what it's like, you're kind of like, wow, I didn't see that coming. So, you know, you get a reward for watching it. You know, it's not just like the standard thing.
That's the word I was looking for, because I was thinking how many times have we been in a situation where we decide to invest ourselves in a series and then not get the payoff at the end and be like, oh, you son of a bitch. I gave you a chance and then you manipulated my trust. You betrayed my trust because it just didn't have a strong enough ending for me. But this is a show that if you give the time, you will get the reward at the end, huh?
Yeah. And I mean, and I will say, you know, it's not like groundbreaking, like, you know, Westworld or, you know what I mean? Like, or Boardwalk Empire, like TV greatness, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it does deliver and you're kind of like, oh, all right, that's cool. And I mean, you know, I like the cast. And so, yeah, I mean, if you've got some time, it's only like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's better than that in my mind, but yeah, so that's dropping on Netflix this weekend. Okay,
good. And then you've been watching the brand new challenge, right?
I have, yeah. I think this is episode of the season 37, I think is what I read.
Yeah, so it's 37, but don't think that it's been on for 37 years. No. That's not how they do it. They do 2 or 3 seasons a year, which I love. They continue to do so. And if you haven't watched MTV's The Challenge, it is the ultimate reality competition show in my mind, in Herb's mind as well.
Yep.
It's a perfect setup. You get a bunch of good-looking people together with issues. You set them up in paradise in a brilliant house. You feed them a bunch of alcohol. You let them bang and then fight each other. And then you make them do these outrageous stunts in the lieu of competition for the sake of a major prize.
Yeah.
That formula has been so tried and true, and it works so well that they're into the 37th season on MTV, and they are the highest rated show on MTV still to this day. It's huge. Yeah. So what has been the takeaways that got you most excited about this season so far?
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's sort of a mixed bag this year. And you know, as a longtime viewer, it's like, you know, these guys, and actually let me do a little backstory. So this came out of The Real World, which was really one of the first, you know, and fight me on this, was one of the first reality shows.
It was the first. And basically, it really was. It was groundbreaking.
I mean, they took 7 strangers, they stuck them in an apartment, they put cameras everywhere, and they just watched to see what would happen.
Yep.
Right? And so out of that came another thing called Road Rules, which was the same formula, except they put, I think, like 5 people into an RV and made them drive around the country and do these, you know, these kind of challenges, right?
Yes.
You know, like go work here or do whatever.
Right.
And so then the challenge came out of that. And the challenge was, let's put the Road Rules people against the Real World people, right? Different casts. And so, you know, and so they were static. They were in one place and you knew them. So it was like, all right, I know this cast. I know these people. I hate that guy. I love that guy, whatever. And so that was the formula. So what's interesting about this season 37 here is a couple of years ago, they sort of started to run out of, because they haven't made a Real World for a while. They haven't done Road Rules in even longer.
Yep.
So they were starting to feel like some of their talent was, you know, like, let's be honest, they're, you know, 40, and they were feeling like, you know, we can't do some of the same death-defying stunts because, you know, someone's going to die.
Yeah, and they're too old.
You know,
character development has been the difference maker in this show as opposed to other competitions like Survivor.
Absolutely. You care about these people and you love to hate them. And, you know, you actually, and these people, honestly, they've made a living. Some of these cats they go out and they get paid to show up at a bar and hang out.
Yes.
They get paid like 20 grand to go show up.
Yeah.
So it's lucrative. You know what I mean? Like once they have a personality, and they're very social media heavy. So if you follow, if you're interested, they're all on Twitter. They all throw shade at each other all the time. They get into these big fights. They break up, they hook up, whatever. Anyway, so what's interesting is they tried a couple of experiments. Like one, they did a version where they were competing against Olympic athletes.
Yes.
And that was interesting because it made you realize how shallow and idiotic some of these Olympians are. But also, it's a different skill set. It's not just being an athlete. It is, like there's mind games and there's how you play, who you align yourself with. And so that's sort of, they did that a couple times, but now they've been rating other reality shows for new blood, right?
Yes,
for new
they
people.
take them all.
And that's, I think, a failure this year. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little frustrated. It drops on Wednesday nights, so I just caught it again. Last night I caught up, and we've got people from Big Brother, Transylvania. We got somebody from, and it's not just, for a while it was like the island UK, and so they're like these really beautiful British people.
Right
now they're all over the place. They got somebody from Transylvania, I think, on there this year right now.
I know.
And so I was actually kind of scrolling through Twitter this morning and looking at stuff, and people are really kind of mad, and they're like, you know what? Enough of these rookies who nobody cares about. Bring back the OGs.
Yeah,
because that's who we care about. We want Johnny Bananas, for those of you who know.
Yes.
We want Wes. We want all these people, Cara Maria. We want these people who, yeah,
exactly. I agree, and we got to wrap it up. But a challenge without Johnny Bananas is not a challenge at all. That's I'm saying.
Perfect
right
way
there.
to end it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the time we have for the show. Herb, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you guys for listening. It's Friday, so I hope you enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back Monday morning bright and early at 6 a.m. Thank you guys for watching the stream as well. You can follow us on YouTube at Beef Vegan Presents. That's it. Riley's up next. Enjoy the rest of your day. Drive safe, ride safe, and as always, rock local. That's because of the time. Like our last commercial break, 7.5 minutes long. So I'm like, oh, yeah. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, all right.
Yeah.
But that's all right. It's Friday, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching the stream. But I think we're gonna end it here. I would have my outro song, but I don't even have that queued up. I got to do some side work, and then I'm hitting the road. I'm going up to Phoenix, hang out with my aunt and uncle, and to fuck around. So hopefully, I'll come back with a bunch of great stories. And then you're phoning in. You're joining us via video next week, Herb?
Yeah, I will be on the stream next week. And next week, we've got a whole bunch of, the big thing is Shanghai and the 10 Rings, obviously.
Yes, which has been getting a great early reviews.
Yes, the early reviews are really strong. And then there's a whole bunch of other films. Wild Indian is very good. The Lost Leonardo, about that Leonardo da Vinci portrait that showed up, is really interesting documentary. Nice. And Worth, which I just watched with Michael Keaton, playing the guy who was responsible for figuring out the victims' compensation fund from 9/11, where they had to figure out how much to pay the victims.
Oh, really?
And he is, oh my God, it's really, really strong movie. Sarah Colangelo is the director. Really, really strong movie. That's dropping on Netflix, so we'll talk about that next week. And then if anybody's a big Mandalorian fan, on Disney Plus, the behind the scenes Disney Gallery episode about the final season 2 episode, which, spoiler alert if you haven't heard about it by now, I don't know what's wrong with you. Luke Skywalker appears to take Baby Yoda, Grogu, away. The whole episode is about them pulling off that reveal and what they did in terms of de-aging Luke, how the secrets they had to keep. And so great to see Dave Filoni and the whole crew, just how much it meant to them to pull off this thing, and what an incredible secret it was to keep for so long. And so it's a lot of fun to watch if you're a fan of The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a fan of The Mandalorian, so I'm looking forward to checking that out, hopefully this weekend too. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, we'll see you on Monday. We're out of here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and be safe out there, right? Later.